Hey guys, Fearu here, and we are on episode 22. I have a pretty good episode for you. We are talking about items. That's a big concept, big part of the game. Obviously, very intricate into your success as far as what items you choose, why you choose them, and that's kind of what I'm going to try to break down. I'm going to question why do we choose the items that we do? Could we be making better choices? How do we transition? But before we get to all that, I need to break down some fundamental concepts. So I'm probably going to break this down into two parts. I'll have probably two episodes. The second one will probably discuss builds and choosing exactly why we do what we do and transitioning from items to other items. The first one, I'm going to discuss just some fundamental concepts that will help us understand, later, okay, that's why we're transitioning from this to that, and that's, where we're going and how we're going to get there. So let's break down, the most simple concept in the game, and that's cost effectiveness. So we take a simple item like Miner Totem, right? You have 600 gold or 603 gold at the very beginning of the game, and how you spend it is super important. So to understand cost effectiveness, we look at Miner Totem. It's an option we have. It's 53 gold and +1 to all stats, and then we see another item like Major Totem for 540 gold for +4 to all stats. Well, why do we want to buy that for 540 gold when we could just buy 3 more Miner Totems? And that does the same thing, right? That effectively does the same thing. And that's kind of the idea of cost effectiveness. The advantage that you get though is Major Totem only takes one slot, so you can fill it with other things, assuming you have the gold. Obviously, in the beginning of the game, you're only going to have 60 gold left, so you can't really fill anything else in there. But that's a fundamental concept that you need to understand going forward. I actually have an image that I'm going to show you guys that I think demonstrates this a lot better. Okay, so what I have here is two item builds that you could go on the hero Plague Rider. And this is something you might see in the 1400, 1500 bracket. I've seen it happen before. On the right hand side, I have a Plague Rider that rushed Lightbrand. His first item was Lightbrand. Maybe he's building a Grimoire, maybe he's building a Dawnbringer, maybe he's just building a Lightbrand as his first item. And on the left hand side, we have a more conventional approach with a refreshing ornament and fortified bracer. Maybe he's building an astrolabe. I have Grave Locket with the upgraded stats. And two Miner Totems. Maybe he had those from the beginning of the game. In the total section, I don't have the stats included on the Steam Boots, since both of them decided to get Steam Boots. I just didn't include the stats. They negate each other. And I have the cost there as well. And the one on the left actually costs less money, which is the key point I wanted to make in cost effectiveness, because, and this doesn't apply with every single item, but it applies with a large portion of them. Usually the cheaper items are more cost effective, and this can be very important in your item selection early on. And if you negate the 16 int from both sides, like in the total on the left he has a total of 16 int, and on the right he has a total of 16 int from the Lightbrand. If you negate those, it basically, after that, it just becomes 16 strength, 13 agility, and 2 health regen aura versus 3 mana regen and the Searing modifier. And that should be enough explanation as to which one should win. Me and my friend, just for fun, went to go test it, so I'll show you guys that right now. Okay, so here we are in this matchup with Lightbrand, Plague Rider versus the items, the Refreshing Ornament, Grave Locket, Plague Rider, and as it should be, no surprise. The one with the Refreshing Ornaments is going to win drastically, and that is the point. Hey guys, so all I wanted to demonstrate there was cost effectiveness. That was my only goal. Was the Plague Rider that was more cost effective won the battle right then and there. and that's basically that was my only point. Obviously that I'm not saying that's the optimal build. I'm not saying every plague rider. If you go plague rider, you need to go those items in that order every time. No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that if you're cost effective with your builds, you're going to be more beneficial to your team if you fight right then, and that's key. And I tried to show two equivalent skilled. I mean, they did basically the exact same thing. Obviously, what you do in a fight has a much larger role, but we need to keep these things in mind so we're playing optimally and we're getting better. But here's my question for you. I want you to think, if we get to end game, super, super end game, right? Super late. If you could build 6 items, you have 6 slots on Plague Rider, you get any items you want, what items do you go? Take your time, think about it. I want you to think very clearly about what 6 items you build. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to guess some of these. Some of you might have been tricky and said like token. Some might be silly and say Doombringer. I'm assuming everyone says post haste. And the answer is it depends on what team you're versing. Some of you might have said Rift Shard, Savage, Shrunken, Nullstone, Hellflower, Sheepstick. I'm actually not concerned with what 6 items you chose. I'm actually concerned about what items you didn't choose. And here's the actual prediction I wanted to make. I want to say that none of you, not one person, said Astrolab or Tablet of Command. Not one person. I hope I'm right. And if you did say those items, you actually chose. You shouldn't choose those items. I don't know what else to tell you. We'll get into that later. And the reason behind it is because they're just not that strong for at the end of the game compared to other items when you have infinite gold. So the question is, why do we see them in competitive games? Well, the answer is they're so cost effective. They are just so cost effective. And if you're going to battle right at that moment, and you only have that much gold, those are really good items to have on your person. So this is where we get into a big difference between competitive games, and then as you get into lower MMR levels, you have your competitive games, which we'll say are like 2100, and then you have your 2000, your 19, 18, all the way down to 1000 level games. Big mistakes can happen where you go in these lulls of uncoordinated team play, which just results in just longer games. Like I said, I finally had a game that was over an hour, which is just ridiculous. It shouldn't happen. And what had happened that allowed us to overtake the enemy team, or not necessarily, there were several factors, but one of the larger factors was the item selection. And certain items, like I said, Astrolab and Tablet being two obvious things that come to mind, as you get into later game, they become weaker. They become less strong because you could have other items in those slots, and being able to transition from one set of items to another becomes very, very important. And it's actually more important in your lower MMR games than your later ones, simply because you're more likely to get to later game in a lower MMR game. So that's something I kind of want you to think about. And I'm going to get into it more when I get into my second episode on items. I hope this first one was good for you. I just wanted to give you guys a rough idea on what being cost effective actually means, and just start thinking about, okay, hey, if we're going to battle now, I should get this item, that item. In my next episode, I'm going to start covering defensive versus offensive items, and then actually get into the build starting items, and then actually transitioning, from one set of items to the next, and trying to stay as optimal as possible throughout the game. But just kind of take away that, like, okay, yeah, this is cost effective now, but now I want you to think, okay, going into the next part of the game, that Plague Rider, what's his next strategy now that he's here? Okay, maybe he needs to open up slots, so maybe he sells a minor totem, builds the Astrolab, and now gets another item. So where does he want to go from there to get to wherever he's planning to go, which is super, super late game? And these are the transitions that we need to think about to help us get better. And that's something I'll cover in my next episode. I hope this was kind of insightful. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.